so I don't forget. Hi, Linda. Hey, Karen, Kristen, Patty, nice to see you. Anybody want to unmute yourself and just say hi and a little bit, anything you're interested specifically about this workshop?
Hi, I'm Suzanne. I'm your next door neighbor in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And I just have relatives here and people around and going out on vacation. And I'm just taking time for myself this morning with you, and I can't wait.
Nice, welcome. Just Hendersonville, that's just like a stone's throw. That's great. Is that where you live, Suzanne?
I do.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
great.
And I
Welcome.
teach there too.
Oh,
And
good.
when I found out there was an older population and I took the therapeutic part in Asheville Yoga Center, I said, bingo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say hi? Just check in for a minute. Anything you're looking forward to about the workshop as folks come on?
Just hi from Tennessee, and I'm just learning my way around, and I will be glad to experience whatever you have to offer. Thank you.
Thanks, Gloria. Welcome.
Gloria Jean.
Gloria Jean, thank you.
Yep, you betcha.
And I'm Linda. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. I was in North Georgia and Atlanta before that. And Kristine, I just want to say how grateful I've been for this past year.
Oh, thanks, Linda.
Yeah.
It's so nice to see you again.
Wonderful to see you. Yeah, I'm still working and seeing clients. So, you know, this has been so helpful and to apply with the practice and more so with myself. So thank you.
Thank you. It's so nice to see you. And Linda's son owns a yoga studio. Is it in Birmingham? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. Yes.
That's great. Are you teaching there at all?
No,
No.
I've not been teaching, but
okay. Yeah. Seeing clients, and you're a psychotherapist, just so folks know. Yeah. Welcome. Anybody else want to say hi? We got a couple more minutes. Just where you're coming in from. Hi, Molly. Looks like you're unmuted.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Molly and from Ohio. I have nice connections to Asheville, though, with my son's family living there. I'm not a yoga teacher, but I have taken a 200-hour training several years ago and have continued the practice and kind of view it as personal growth for myself and am loving all the things I'm learning here. So thank you.
Thank you, Molly. So good to see you. And Molly, what did you win last week? Were you the grand prize winner?
I was. It's so exciting. I won the.
I knew you won something.
I did. I won the course, the neuroscience course, and it is awesome. I'm working my way through it and really learning a lot and enjoying it very much. It was so. I mean, who could believe I would win something?
That's what people always say when they win prizes. Good, though. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and it was nice to see your name come up in the drawing. So welcome everybody. We still have a few minutes before we're getting started, so we're just chatting and visiting with each other and kind of seeing where people are coming from. So anybody here from outside the U.S. that wants to say hi? Looking around. There's Donna. Where are you from, Donna? I can't hear. Unmute. Yeah.
Okay, I'm from East Sussex, England.
Welcome.
Yeah, hello.
So what time is it there? Like 3?
It's 3 o'clock, nearly 3 o'clock, and it's raining. So what better thing could I be doing than this afternoon?
Welcome. It's nice to have you here from across the pond.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Great. And I saw Iris. I know Iris is in Germany, right?
Yeah. Hi.
Sorry, for me, the sun is shining. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's really nice to see you guys.
Good. You look like an angel. You're bathed in
Thank you.
angelic light.
I wanted to sit outside and to enjoy the summer weather.
Good, good. It's nice to have you here. It's great. Anybody else want to say hi? We have about 3 minutes before we get started.
Hi.
So more people will be coming
Yeah,
on. Hey, Sally.
Hi, I'm in the UK, and I was actually born in or brought up in East Sussex. I'm wondering where you are, Donna.
Hello there. Yes, I'm in Battle.
Oh, okay,
Battle,
okay,
yeah, near Hastings.
okay. I was born in Groombridge, which is sort of almost on the Kent border, so the other side of the county.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Oh, wonderful. See,
Yeah.
we're closer than you think on this, aren't we?
But now I'm up in the northeast. I'm north of Newcastle on the Northumberland coast, which is a really nice place to live. So yeah.
So I bet it's beautiful. Yeah.
And we've got a little bit of sunshine today. You can just see a bit of sun coming through there. It's perked up a bit. So lovely to be here.
It's so nice to have it. I'm so used to just like talking to the camera. So it's really nice to have everybody chatting. And I'm sure many of you understand what that feels like too. So we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. Let me just highlight the video as more people come on. I think this might work. Does that spotlight the video and then you see the people up on the top? Is that what happened? Okay. So camera's not. Now I see my camera's a little high. There we go. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this is a 2-hour workshop and we're going to be having breakout rooms so that we'll have time to talk to each other about the content of the workshop. Yeah, those of you who didn't get to say hi, please say hi. Just type something in the chat box. It's really nice to have you here from all these different places and all over the States, and we talked to some folks in Europe, and I think the people in Australia are probably sleeping. So we probably won't see them except on the replay. And my intention is to have like these breakout rooms where we do a little bit of processing together and a little bit of like sharing ideas. So I like this idea of hive mind. It looks like a couple people have their mics on, so you could just check and shut your mic off, okay? Yeah, I think I can mute you too, but anyway, it looks like, yeah, okay. Inger, I see that you have your hand up, and we will have time for Q&A today. That's the other thing too. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A, plenty of time for hive mind stuff, sharing ideas. The whole idea of this workshop is take the stuff that you've learned this past year, or if you're just joining the group, we can talk about this, your talents and your skills. You still have plenty of talents and skills. Take your talents and skills and reach the people that you need to reach with them. And for those of you who are not that interested in marketing and teaching yoga and reaching people because you're already fine and whatever, I hope that this workshop will still give you some ideas and inspiration. Like I hope it's just inspiring for you anyway, regardless of where you are in terms of thinking about your yoga business or thinking about your yoga teaching and not really thinking about it as a business. I hope it will still give you some ideas that you can take with you and feel like better communication, because really what it all comes down to, regardless of any of the tools that you use, regardless if you're doing marketing or have people helping you or doing Facebook ads or any of that stuff, or putting up flyers or talking to health professionals, regardless of any of those things that you're doing, what's really important is being clear about what you teach. That's the most important thing. It's like, this is what I do, and I'm super clear about it, and I can give you, the potential student, I can give you some simple, succinct answers that will help you. Like, for example, here's a good example. Yesterday, somebody wrote on one of my Facebook groups, someone asked me what the difference is between subtle yoga and gentle yoga, and I didn't know what to say. that was her question. She said, they're kind of the same thing, right? And I was like, no, I didn't even have time to respond to her, but it's very easy for me. I just go, no, subtle yoga is about your nervous system and optimizing the function of your nervous system. And gentle yoga has different ideas, like gentle stretching. Like that's it. I just say something really basic. It's not even a paragraph. Just boom, that's it. That's how I differentiate it. And I put my stake in the ground. So I have a friend who's a marketer, and he always uses that expression. He says, get your stake, put it in the ground. Like that's what you do. And when you're really clear about what you do, that's marketing. That's all it is, you know. So then all the tools that you use are different. So that's basically like an introduction to this workshop and what I want to share. So, and as more people come on or as folks leave, you know, please know that this workshop is all being recorded. We will send you the link. You can watch it again. You can never watch it. You know, you can do whatever you want with it. It's just an opportunity for us to be together is really nice. And then, you know, if there's certain things you wanted to go over again, like that's going to be available too. Okay, so I wanted to start by just sharing a little bit about my journey with teaching and reaching people, because it has been a rocky one with some bumps along the way. But I thought it would help to contextualize what we're doing today and why I'm so passionate about it and why I want to share this with you. So it was 1995 when I came back from my 4 years in India. And when I came back to the United States, I was living in New Jersey, pretty close to where I grew up. In Frenchtown, which is close to New Hope, where I grew up in Pennsylvania. And I just wanted to teach yoga. I remember one day I was meditating. I was like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, I had worked in Japan, so I saved a lot of money. And then I traveled for about almost 2 years all over Asia. And so that was great. And then, you know, my idea or my thought was, you know, so I had a little bit of money. I didn't have to like, you know, get back to work really fast. So I was meditating one day, and the thought that came to me was, I really don't want to do anything except teach yoga and do body work and other healing work. So I started studying more body work at that time. I had studied before I went to Asia, and I started studying homeopathy, and I started studying yoga. I was just like studying everything I could get my hands on, you know. And at that time, it was 1995, right? So the whole kind of California vinyasa train had only just left the station. It had been going on for maybe 10 years in California. It was only kind of gaining a little bit of steam in New York, Chicago, major cities, but there were not a lot of yoga studios in 1995. There were a few. Many of them were still Iyengar studios, because the Iyengar studios kind of started before anything else. So I literally made a flyer. I made a piece of paper. I think I did it on the computer, or my friend's. I don't even think I had a computer. I did it on my friend's computer. And I went to the A&P, which is, those of you who remember from the Northeast, that was the old grocery store in the Northeast. So I went to the A&P, which was down the street, like 3 blocks away from where I lived. And I had a push pin, and I stuck my flyer in the on the bulletin board at the A&P. And I lived in a small town. And the next week, my classes were starting, and I had about 40 people come to my class from that one little flyer in the A&P. And I was like, okay, here we go. Here's some yoga that I learned in India, and I think you'll like it, blah, blah, blah. And the next week, about 30 people showed up, and the next week about 20 people. And then I finally got down to my core group of about 10 to 15 people, and they showed up every week. And I ended up teaching. I was teaching in a ballet studio, and then I ended up just teaching in my friend's garage because it was cheaper and just more convenient. So that was my experience. And for 6 years, I did that. And at the same time I was teaching, I had gone to this really progressive nursing home facility in the town where I grew up, which was Newtown, Pennsylvania. And I went to this really progressive facility, and I was like, I know how to teach yoga. I want to share yoga with the elder population here. And they said, sure, when can you start? Which was often that was often what I got back in the mid 90s, late 90s, was like, okay, when can you start? Because there just weren't a lot of yoga teachers then, you know. So I spent 5 or 6, almost 6 years in the nursing home facility, and that's where I cut my yoga therapy chops. Like, I had to learn how to work with people with anxiety and cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, early stage dementia, arthritis, back pain, I mean, on and on, you know. So I really spent a lot of time there. And at the same time, I was studying. I was going to workshops and learning a lot. So what happened to me was, this is all going to make sense in a minute in terms of reaching people. What happened to me was in 2000, and it was about 2000. My husband was finishing up his master's degree at Rutgers. He's a psychotherapist now, but at that time he was working on his master's degree. And we were both feeling like we wanted to live in a place that had a more overt interest in spirituality. Like, we wanted to live somewhere where people cared about spirituality, people were into meditation, people were, you know, into alternative things. And we were not finding that so much in Jersey. And so we moved to Asheville, North Carolina. My parents had actually lived down here for a little bit before they moved to Florida. And we had a lot of friends who lived here. And when I got here to Asheville, I was like, oh, I get it, because there was a crystal shop on every corner, and there were drum circles happening, and there was kirtan happening, and, you know, it was a lot of yoga going on, a lot of yoga studios. You couldn't like throw a yoga teacher without hitting a massage therapist back then. So when we got here, I had a rude awakening, you know, because I went to the food co-op, not the A&P. I went to the food co-op, and I put up my flyer that had worked just fine for 6 years. And had a little studio space that my friend just had a really big living room. She was like, sure, come teach yoga here. And so I had this little space, and I went for my first class, and guess what? No one came. You probably knew that, right? Nobody showed up. And that was like crushing. It was soul crushing in some ways. But in other ways, what it did was it woke me up to something that I hadn't even ever thought about before, which was marketing, and the idea that I have something to share. And so how do I let people know that I have something to share and that I want to share it with them, you know? Hang on one second. I'm having my hot flashes. So let me turn on my fan. Okay. Just a little pitch of provocation there. Okay, so that was my awakening. That was my like, oh my God, there is so much competition here. And so I have to do 2 things. One is I have to get clear about what I do. The second thing I have to do is get good at what I do, because I never had to get good at it, right? I just had students. So I was like, oh, here's some yoga. And then I realized, oh, I have to work really hard. So I always say, like, people ask me about, you know, my career or whatever, and they ask me about the different yoga centers in Asheville. Oh, thank you. Brenda said, put some peppermint oil on the back of my neck. I also do shitali and shitkari. Those are really good. I call them like the menopause pranayamas. Anyway, so I realized I had to get really good at what I do. And when people ask me sometimes about my career, I'm like, Asheville, and specifically the very, very famous yoga centers in Asheville that I don't teach for, are what made me get good at what I do, because I had to start figuring out how to reach people who already had very convenient and very like highly marketed, slick organizations where they could easily go to, including the Y. So it was the Y, Asheville Yoga Center, and then later Asheville Community Yoga, that were just kind of sucking up all the yoga market. And I realized, like, I have to do something different. You know, I have to reach people that maybe don't want to go to those places. And that was sort of what I set out to do. So that's just kind of a preface to what I wanted to, you know, how I want to start this workshop today. I just wanted to tell you that that's what got me into realizing I needed to work really hard. I needed to work really hard on marketing. I needed to work really hard on figuring out what my message was. And so people say to me like, oh, like Susan wrote in the box, like, oh, that was such a good explanation for, you know, the difference between subtle yoga and gentle yoga. That took me years to figure that out. Right. So like, it sounds really good, but it took me literally like 15 years to get to that place. Maybe not 15, maybe 10 to 12 years to get to that place where I can be like, boom, this is what's the difference. And this is why it's good for you. And it's not so much that I'm going, I got over that idea of like, I need a lot of clients or a lot of students. I got over it. And I got to the place where I was like, no, what I do is going to help you change your life. And I'm completely 100% convinced of that. And when I got to that place, then I could just tell people what I did. And whether or not you come, that's not my business, right? Like what they say and what Krishna says in the Gita, like you do the right thing, but the outcomes of your actions, you have no right to those, right? So it took me a long time to get to that place. And what I hope is that through some of the work that I've done and some of the things that I can share with you, that you can get to that place too, and maybe a little more easily. One of the things I sent you, did you see this document, Get Healthcare on Your Side? Let me see if I can share it with you. I sent this to you in one of the emails before the workshop started. You should have got it, I don't know, yesterday or something, day before. This is a key talking points for yoga teachers when you're working with healthcare professionals. So again, this is something, and this, by the way, I use it to share with people what my the Subtle Yoga Connect to Healthcare kit is about. Whether or not you buy that is not my business, right? What I'm interested in is you having this information that can be helpful for you. And this in and of itself, and again, like it's not about, I'm not trying to sell you the course right now. You might want to look at it, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I think what I've done is I've curated what's worked for me over the years and what the population needs from all the research I've done, you know, and looking into public and population health, and trying to help you see that there are things you can do that are going to be really helpful for you in talking to healthcare professionals, and things you should know, like these research studies can be really helpful. And using the word evidence informed, you know, like things like that, I think can be super helpful when you start to understand them in terms of reaching healthcare professionals. We don't have a lot of time to talk about healthcare professionals. I'm going to stop sharing now. We don't have a lot of time to talk about healthcare professionals today and talking to them, but like that little PDF it's packed with stuff that will help you. It's packed with stuff depending on what you're interested in. So that's what I'm really interested in now, is as I've realized that there's such a need for this kind of yoga and got over my inferiority stuff that I was really struggling with when I first came to Asheville, because yoga was hot and yoga was fast and yoga was sweaty and it was super athletic. And I'd just been teaching in a nursing home for 6 years, you know. So that wasn't what I was used to teaching. And yet then I was really conflicted, because I was like, but that's what everybody wants. And I don't teach like that. So what I had to do was try and figure out the benefits of what I teach and also how I reach the people that really need the work. So, let's start. I want to, we will have time for questions. So feel free to put them in the chat box if you want to remember your questions, but let's go ahead and start the PowerPoint. Yoga to the people, man, because it sounds really hippie, but the reality is that folks really do need yoga, and it might not be like yoga at a big hippie festival somewhere, but there are many people that need this work that aren't having access to it. And I think the first thing we have to talk about are chronic diseases. This is from the World Health Organization. above and, far beyond anything that people are needing yoga for, whether it's, they want to get a yoga butt on like Instagram or it's trendy or any of that stuff. The real reason that people need yoga is because chronic diseases are so prevalent. And in the United States, 6 out of 10 people have one chronic disease, and 4 out of 10 people have 2 or more. So we have these huge amounts of, and this is just top 10 causes of death, but you can see that most of it is chronic diseases. So we have this huge amount of chronic disease, and we're not serving that population. That's a really important thing to understand. Now, this is from the Yoga in America study, which was done in 2016 by Yoga Journal and Yoga Alliance. And what they found is that there are only about 1 out of every 10 people that practice any yoga at all. And those people are very well served, right? They have lots and lots of places they can go to yoga. They can do yoga online if they want. They can go to studios. There's lots of places. But look at this, there's 80 million people that, and this is 5 years ago, that were thinking they might like to try yoga. How many times, I know you've heard these stories, and I've heard them so many times. How many times have you met someone and said, I'm a yoga teacher, or I like yoga, and they said, I can't stand on my head, so I don't do yoga. I can't touch my toes, so I don't do yoga. I went to a yoga class once, and it was really weird. There was incense and chanting, so I don't do yoga. Like there's so many reasons, there's so many barriers for getting yoga to the people who really need it. So that's why we have to think differently. And thinking differently, being an innovator, thinking differently is how you find success in this world, not by thinking the way things have been always going, not by doing things the way they've always been done, but by changing the way that we've been doing things, because that's really how we find the people that need the help, and also how we can be successful as teachers. So we are going to do, here's something I'd like you to comment on right now. We know, we've just established the fact that people need yoga, and most people aren't getting it. As I said, in the US, 1 out of 10 people does any yoga at all within a year. And that could be just like throwing on some YouTube video, right? So that means most people are not doing yoga, but we know that they need it because we have evidence base, and I showed you that in that PDF, good evidence base for how this practice can help people with prevention, with helping whatever chronic diseases they already have, with avoiding it. We know that. That's so established, right? So the big question is going to be, how do you get it to them? And really, this is why it's so important to have goals for your teaching. Like, who do I want to serve? And not so much like, I mean, you can have goals that are like, I want to make, X number of dollars a year, or I want to have X number of students. Those are good. Those are fine. But even more important is, who do I want to serve, right? So in 10 words or less, I would like to ask you in the chat box, and I'll read some of these, is to just write a goal. Like, what is your goal for teaching yoga? What do you want to do? Let's see. Suzanne wrote, participants that attend my classes have lots of, for a better word, limitations. I study a lot too. I'm really studying the bones, osteoporosis, osteopenia. See if you can do it in 10 words or less, but I think she wrote this before. Many of the exercises I view on your classes has forward folds and twist rotations that may not be so great with those with porous and pina. Yeah. Are there variations to these poses? We will get to that. That's a good question for a Q&A session that we do every month. And I totally hear you, and I know exactly what you're talking about. So we can talk about that at some time. But let's go back to this question. Sorry, I shouldn't have read that. Let's go back to this question. What, in 10 words or less, what do you want to do? So Brenda said, to help people become at home in their bodies. Great. And then what I would suggest, Brenda, is tell me who those people are specifically. What kind of people? Because, and here's something that I say all the time. Yoga for everybody is yoga for nobody, right? Because that people look at stuff and they go, I can't do yoga, and I don't know how this is different or how it's going to solve my problem, and I can't stand on my head and I can't do that fling yourself around stuff, and I can't do handstands, or gentle yoga looks boring. Like, who are the people specifically that you're going to help? Okay. So Fleta wrote, I want to reach workers, emergency responders. Yes, she's got it. Stress out managers who are poor leaders, and overworked parents find relief in an accessible way, meaning time to do it and not so woo-woo. Great. And then, so what Fleta, is it Fleta? I hope I'm saying that right. I want to reach workers, emergency responders, stretched out managers, overworked parents. She's got 4 different groups. When I first started getting online, I had 3 groups: yoga teachers, mental health professionals, and yoga enthusiasts. Those were my 3 groups. And I started with yoga teachers because I put out a survey to my list, and most of the people on my list were yoga teachers. And that was 3 years ago. I have not got to the other 2 people yet. So just so you know, it takes a long time just to serve one group of people, right? So you might just want to start with one of those. But great, I like how you got so specific. And then Brenda wrote, let's see, to help people who want to age gracefully and never grow old. Okay, well, that's impossible, but we'll all grow. But age gracefully is a great one, right? We'll catch up soon, have to go out. Okay, let's see. Linda says, teach clients self-regulation, ways to help themselves. Great. And clients, so let's see what's embedded in Linda's word there is that she is a psychotherapist. So she already has a specialty. Marie wrote, guide MS folks to connect to their body and recognize its brilliance. It didn't abandon them due to MS. Wonderful, because you're so specific. There are, I think I can't remember how many cases of multiple sclerosis a year, like 100,000, get something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's specific. Devorah said to give resources for neurologic grounding to enhance wellness in teachers. So I think you mean school teachers, right? Great, that's specific. Bernie said, I'd like to work with people with chronic pain of all kinds and often. Wonderful, chronic pain. Diane said, reach high functioning people with anxiety, depression, et cetera, especially after lockdowns, okay? And you might even want to drill down into a little bit into what high functioning people are. Women in recovery, struggling with stress. That's great, Andy. Women in recovery, very specific. Danielle said, share yoga with elders and people living with chronic pain. Oh my God, I'm so in love with all of these. And Fleta said, thank you for the guidance. Let's see. Where am I? Sorry, it's a little hard to get to all these. Sally said, supporting people who find it hard to connect with their mind body because of trauma. I'm still sorry, I lost it. Sorry about that. There's so many good ones. I can't read them all. Molly said, taking older yogis on a journey of care and love. I love it. Let's see. Brenda said addiction recovery, chronic pain, anxiety, and I would get right into the person, right? So make sure you define the person. Lori said, I'd like to work with people at or near retirement who want to reclaim their health and enhance their wellness. Great. And then get specific about what that means. People at or near retirement, like what kind are they retiring from something specific? Because everybody retires. So you can get even more, well, not everybody, but you can get even more specific. Brenda said chronic pain. Maggie said to help people get through their day with less pain and better movement. And again, get specific with the people that you're talking about. Reaching out to women who want to regain mobility. Oh, and somebody wrote about teens. I'm so sorry. There's so many great ones. I can't read them all, but please read through the please read through the chat box because there's so many great points here. And this is what I want you to start thinking about if you feel like you want to reach more people. Some people are just like, I'm good. I've got my like 10 people that I teach yoga to twice a week and I'm great. I have a friend like that. Her name's Kelly. And she started teaching yoga about the same time I did. She moved to Asheville a couple of years before I did. And she teaches out of her living room. She's been doing it for like 25 years. And she has like the same group of 10 to 12 people. She works with seniors. So of course they die. And then, the other ones that are in the class tell their friends, then Kelly has a space so they can come. She's got a great thing going, and it's just, that's her thing. She decided that's what I want to do. So, it's, you have to decide what your goals are as a teacher, right? That's really important. But then once we get our goals, we sort of figure out like, these are the people I really want to work with because I feel so passionate about it. That's when we can start to really think seriously about how we're going to find these people and how we're going to help them. So I'm going to stop sharing here for a moment because I asked Stacy to come on. Go back here. I asked Stacy to come on because Stacy is such a great, well, first of all, I wanted everybody to meet Stacy. I said, Stacy, you've been helping me for so long and people haven't met you. Are you here, Stacy? I'm not seeing. Oh, there you are. Okay. So go ahead and unmute yourself and I'm going to pin you. Now, Stacy helps me out and has been working with me for a number of years, but she also is very, very successful in working with folks in recovery. And I just asked Stacy to come on and just talk a little bit about what you're up to and how did it unfold for you?
So I think about 5 years after I took your second teacher training, I started subbing for folks for recovery centers. And I realized how much connection I had to that population. Being that really your practice and coming to your class, by the way, you were the first yoga class I ever went to in 2010. And I feel so grateful and so fortunate for that experience because it really was the catalyst for my own recovery and my process of healing. And so seeing the people in the recovery centers, I realized I had tools that could really help them. And as I subbed a few times and I got really good feedback and responses from both the clinicians and the clients, when an opportunity arose, I took it, and then more opportunities kept coming.
And now, well, first of all, just to clarify, like that was your passion and you found something that helped you to solve your problem, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And then it became your passion to help other people.
Absolutely. I realized how rewarding it was to share the practices with them in the state, the early recovery and all the trauma work and all the nervous system resilience that they needed, how valuable it was, how many tools I had.
And the other thing I want to say here is that I think it's so important what Stacy's done. Well, first of all, let me before I say that, tell us what you're doing right now, Stacy, and what's working.
So far as what I'm teaching?
Yeah. No, I mean you're in terms of the like what has worked for you to actually get to do this work.
I'm not totally sure what you mean.
So you're teaching many classes a week.
Okay. Yeah, I've got 9.
Thriving, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted you to talk about a little bit.
Yeah. So I love that I have variety because I teach at 3 different recovery centers. So I get to work with different populations. Some are really young. One center is like 18 to 65, or I don't even think there's an age limit. And one is 35 and up. So I have 9 clinical groups a week. And then I do just, a couple of my own classes on Zoom and then 2 at a recovery center or a retirement center. So lots of variety, lots of unique conditions, lots of, every day is different. I come in with a plan, but I often have to scrap my plan just based on what the group needs and the energy needs. And so being able to offer so many variations and so many options, I think is paramount. If I just taught Vinyasa flow, I wouldn't have any of these tools.
Right. So are you as busy as you would like to be?
Oh my goodness, yes. There's nights I'm up till like 8 o'clock finishing my notes from the day. So
right.
Yeah.
And then the one other thing I would like you to talk about is what did you do in this field of addiction recovery? What else have you done to kind of enhance your knowledge base and your skills?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I went to get my It was CSAC at the time. Now it's CDAC. It's in North Carolina, it's Certified Alcohol and Drug Counselor. And so it's probably different letters for different states, but that's what allowed me to get a little more in depth with clients and kind of forge deeper relationships with both them and their therapists and be more active in their healing. And
well, then, and did it also open some doors for you in terms of the other facilities seeing your skill set?
Yes, absolutely. I think it made me more attractive to hire because there's more potential for reimbursement from insurance.
Right. So sometimes you do yoga plus groups, right? Like group processing.
Yes. There's almost always a discussion before we do any movement or pranayama or meditation. There's always a theme, as long as it works for the day. So yeah, there's always some conversation.
So yeah, and Fleta just wrote, it's really interesting about insurance because the potential for getting reimbursed is important in the health insurance system that we have in the United States. In other places, I know they have social prescribing in the UK right now, where you can, prescribe somebody who needs yoga to a yoga teacher or yoga therapist in the UK. So like they're a little further ahead than we are, but within the institutions that you work in, there's a possibility for you to, for your work to get reimbursed. And that's really attractive to the people who run the facilities, right?
Yeah. I was thinking also when you were talking that I can't tell you how many clients tell me this is their first yoga experience. And so just introducing people to having that agency and those tools to empower their healing, I think is revolutionary.
Yep. So thank you, Stacey. I know you've got other things to do today. I don't want to spend too much of your time, but I really appreciate you being here. And then Patricia also put in the chat that Stacey's also a great yoga mentor.
Oh, thanks, Patricia.
And she's a great teacher and a great mentor. I really wanted to talk to Stacey. Thank you, Stacey. I really wanted to talk to Stacey because of the work she's been doing and how she was able to sort of get that goal and then operationalize that. And that's what's so beautiful about what you've done with the training that you've had. So thank you for sharing. And thank you for all the great work you do for Subtle Yoga. We really appreciate it.
I could not have done any of this without you, because you were the inspiration and the catalyst for so much positive change. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go back right now. I hope that was helpful in thinking a little bit more about, about how to get more specific, and I hope that was helpful to listen to Stacey's story. Let's kind of go from there to talk about what does that mean. You can have these goals, and having the goals is super important, and drilling down to exactly the kind of person you want to work with is really important. Like when I was first starting to get into marketing, one of the exercises I did was writing a perfect description of the perfect client I wanted to work with. I highly recommend doing that. Even though it's artificial, it makes you think about okay, I remember working with this person or this group of people, and those were the people that I really got a lot of satisfaction from. So then when I wrote that down, it helped me to visualize it. And as we know from the yoga tradition, visualization is everything. You've got to put it out there and think it through so that it can manifest. Not saying that it will always manifest. I'm not that woo-woo, but you got to think about it for it to become a reality. So marketing is not a dirty word. It's basically about, and I mentioned this earlier, it's just being very effective in your communication skills. It's not a dirty word. It's just to be effective in communicating what you do. And when you can start at that place then and work on it, it takes some work. You start at that place, then you can move forward and with a lot of clarity and be able to reach more people. Okay, so I wanted to read you this quote from Marianne Williamson that you've probably seen a million times before, but it's so important. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. I put this quote in the middle of this presentation because one of the things for me, and one of the things that I've talked to many yoga teachers about, is feelings of inadequacy. You know, when you look at your Instagram feed of yoga, there's a lot of shame selling going on there. There's a lot of aspirational yoga, like people with perfect bodies doing perfect poses. And that creates, and that is a mechanism of capitalism, a very well-known mechanism of capitalism. Make people feel bad enough about themselves and they will buy something, right? And that's not what yoga is about, quite opposite, in fact. So when we feel inadequate, when we feel fearful, when we feel like we don't have anything to offer, that's a wonderful opportunity to change something in yourself, right? And so one of the things that a lot of marketers talk about is mindset. They say, you know, if you have a bad mindset, if you are negative or inadequate or scarcity, you got to work on your mindset. I don't think mind has a set, frankly, from my studies of yoga. I think mind is a very plastic, dynamic thing that changes constantly. And sometimes I read an article or I see a social media post and it makes me feel bad about myself. And then I shift my perspective, I do some practice, I do my yoga, and I'm able to dissipate that. Because just because you are working on yoga, just because you're working on yourself, doesn't mean you're perfect. Of course not. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be affected by the things that bombard us all day long about how inadequate we are, you know? So what changes mindset, in my opinion, is not just like, okay, get over that and crack the whip, because I've had plenty of marketers and coaches tell me things like that. That's not who I am, and that's not what I believe. I believe that practice tunes me in to my deeper dharma, swadharma, right? My deeper sense of who I am, what my meaning and purpose is in the world. And as I get tuned into that, my mindset changes. So when my mindset goes down, that's the red flag that says you're not practicing enough for me, you know. And then the next piece I would suggest is letting go or surrender. And I talked about that earlier. Like, we have these ideas somehow that we are in control of everything and we're, you know, the masters of the universe in a sense, when we really don't know. Like, and as Krishna teaches in the Gita, do the right thing. You're entitled to do the right thing. What you're not entitled to is the outcome of your actions, because we don't know what our samskaras are, what our karmic residue is. We don't know. You know, all we know is what we can do right now in this moment to alleviate human suffering and to create inspiration and optimism and a possibility for things being different and transformation. We have the capacity to do that, but how we do it, what the results are of how we do that, are not that important, really. As you practice and as you let go, you get to the place where you realize, I'm the vehicle for this light to travel through me. I'm the vehicle for it. I am not the light. I'm the vehicle for the light. And that's, I think yoga teachers, when we get to that place, the message comes through very clearly, and it becomes much less about me manipulating things or trying to make it all work or whatever and control, and becomes more about like, this is it, and this is what I do, and I'm going to do the best that I can and use all the tools that are available to me to do that, but I have to let go of the outcomes of it. And when I can be the vehicle for this light that's coming through me, wherever it comes from, if it comes from God or a higher self or a higher power or just the goodness of the universe, then you're doing something useful. I would come home sometimes from my classes where either one person would show up or I'd have 3 people in class, and when I first moved to Asheville, and my husband and I'd be like depressed, and my husband would be like, "Did you help one person?" And I would be like, "Yeah, I think I did help them with that pose or help them feel better about whatever was going on in their life." And he would say, "Then you've done what you're supposed to do today. You know, your day was not wasted." And it's such a great message to remember. It's not about the numbers, you know, it's about the work and being the vehicle for that work. And I guess at that time when I had 1 or 3 people, like that was just a reflection of where I needed to be, and I needed to be okay with that. So let's get down into some of the nuts and bolts of reaching people. You know, what are the tools? I talked about mindset. Mindset, I think, is just about practice more. When you're not feeling so good, practice more. Get some therapy if you need that. You know, therapy is always a good idea. Do more practice. You know, I sometimes I gloss over therapy because I have a psychotherapist that I talk to every day in my house. I've saved a lot of money. That's always my joke, but he is a very wise person. And you know, when you don't necessarily have that, having a therapist in your life to help support you, or a coach to help support you through some of that mindset stuff is very helpful, and practice is very helpful, and letting go of the outcomes of your actions is very helpful. Okay, so when we get down to marketing, what the basics of our marketing, they're just these questions. Who am I going to teach? What am I going to teach them? Where am I going to teach? When am I going to do it? Why do I want to do it? And how am I going to? I mean, that's marketing in a nutshell. So we're not going to go through all of these, but when you think about it this way, then you can get really specific. Like, and when you get a chance sometime, answer all those questions. Then you'll be really much clearer about how you want to share. The most important thing is finding your people. And as I talked about before, like having a sense of who do I want to work with and being really specific. So not just people. There should be some qualification to that. What kind of people do you want to work with? What kind of person do you want to have as a student or client? And be really specific about it: their age, their gender, their occupation, income level, what they're interested in, what their problems are is the other thing I should have added here. And where are you going to find this person? And where do people like this hang out? These are the other, these are the other huge, important issues that we need to think about here is, where do these people hang out? Because when I know where they hang out, then I can find them. If I don't know where they hang out, I won't find them. And that could be hanging out virtually, and it could be hanging out in person, depending on how you want to work. I want to show you a couple of quotes from my favorite marketer. His name is Seth Godin. And Seth said, "The key to success is to find a way to stand out, to be the purple cow in a field of monochrome Holsteins." Right? So he's got a book called The Purple Cow, which is the first marketing book I ever read, and I still think it's one of the greatest ones. Nobody says, "Yeah, I'd like to set myself up for some serious criticism," and yet the only way to be remarkable is to do just that. Be okay to go out there on a limb a little bit. And you know, I was talking about that yesterday in one of the Facebook posts I did. It's like, I spent a lot of time getting criticized that I didn't have the right body, I wasn't teaching the right stuff, I was too intellectual. Like, there were all sorts of people have said all sorts of things to me. What I teach is too different, it's not normal enough, blah blah blah, too hard, too slow. You have to roll with the criticism. I think one of the things for me as a yoga teacher, I came to yoga in some ways to be perfectly transparent. One of the reasons I came to yoga is because I got so much validation for it. People would just say, "I feel so good after your class. This is changing my life, blah, blah, blah." And I needed that at one point in my life. As I matured, as I did more practice and more work on myself and more therapy, I started to realize I don't need that validation to come from outside of myself so much anymore. I need it to come from inside. And criticism is a way it's like a litmus test. Like, this is what I think works. Does it work? If people are giving me a lot of criticism about it, maybe. But if I can use that criticism to reflect back in, and when I go back in and go, "No, I'm doing the right thing," then that criticism is just a way to make me stronger and to get clearer about my message, to get clearer about what I'm doing and why it's beneficial. One more quote I have a bunch more quotes, but one more here. "Organizations that destroy the status quo win." change the status quo, whatever you know what the status quo is in the yoga world. It's changing. But when I started teaching early, late 90s, early 2000s, the status quo was hard, fast, harder, faster, thinner. It was all of that. And I just could not abide by that. That was not what I knew yoga to be. And I wanted to be out there changing the status quo. And I've always thought about my teaching that way. Another huge point from Mr. Godin: don't find customers for your products. Find products for your customers. This was a huge shift for me when I started to realize, and you see, and those of you who have been following me for a while, I'm always asking you what you want next. Like, tell me what you need. Tell me what you need, because it's huge, because you go, oh my God, it's not about me. It's about you. Like, imagine that. Everything's not about me. It's not about me. It's about you and what your needs are. And when I ask those questions, I get so much feedback. Even just in the Resilient Society, I put up polls like, what do you want to do next? And I get so much feedback that I would not necessarily have thought of. So find products for your customers. Don't find customers for your products. It's huge. I can't tell you how many people go, oh, I just created this great online course. How do I market it? People ask me that all the time. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. You should think about what kind of course you're going to be creating based on who your people are, not because you want to create that course. It's what your people want. It's not about what you want. And that goes right back to service, right? And this is another really harsh one from him, but I think it's really good. In a world that relentlessly races to the bottom, if you lose, if you also race to the bottom, the only way to win is to race to the top. The opposite of remarkable is very good. I love these quotes. It's like, don't be very good, be remarkable. And in this world that relentlessly races to the bottom, yesterday I was at a soccer game with my husband and my son and a few of my son's friends' parents. So I was chatting with one of the parents he owns a brewery out in another town close by here. And so we were talking about beer and stuff. And I said, there's so many breweries in Asheville. Like, why did you decide to do that? Because I was curious. And he said, well, people always drink. And he was kind of joking. And I was like, yeah, that's true. But the second thing he said was, we were talking about selling beer in grocery stores. He's like, look, if you want the best milk, this is what he said to me. If you want the best milk, do you go to Ingles? I was like, no, I wouldn't. I'd go to the farm, Hickory Nut Gap farm down the road, because I know that they're really into there. And he's like, exactly. He said, I don't sell my beer in Ingles because I think of it as the best product, the remarkable product. And so I don't want to sell it just everywhere and anywhere. I want it to be remarkable. I want to race to, he was saying, I want to race to the top. I don't want to race to the bottom. You might have seen a meme I put up a couple days ago this is something I think about all the time. Popular and good are almost never the same thing, or popular and remarkable almost never the same thing, almost never. There is a lot of popular yoga out there. Just like if you want a good piece of pizza, you could go to Domino's. It's popular. Is it good? No, you would never go to Domino's if you wanted really good pizza, right? You would, the restaurant to go to, or if you go to a new town, you search out that restaurant, you ask a lot of people, you try different places, and finally you find that pizza place where you're like, that's my pizza. That's the remarkable pizza. That's the one I want. And it might not be remarkable for everybody, thank goodness, because the last thing you need is 10 million yoga students, right? You don't need that. You need a certain number, and you can determine what that number is, but you don't need the 10 million. Like, let Domino's have 10 million customers. Let whoever on YouTube have 10 million followers, or let whoever, whatever yoga studio in your town have 10 million. That's not necessarily what you need. You as a small person, as a small business person, what you need are the people that are really devoted to your stuff and don't just take it because it's easy, like this is the easy thing to grab. No, you need the people that really think deeply about it. Okay, so moving on from this idea, I wanted to show you these quotes from Seth, because he just has inspired me so much to think about like how I want to be in the world and what I want to offer and how I want to serve people what they need and what they want, not just what I think they should have, all that stuff. He really helped me with that. He was like the first marketing book I ever picked up, The Purple Cow. So all that being said, there are opportunities in the yoga world. And when we know about these opportunities, we can do something about it. So sometimes we just don't even know what the opportunities are. I know some of you you're already clear about what your opportunities are, but here are some ideas, right? And this is just 6 of them. There's hundreds, right? So one of them, drug and alcohol recovery centers have a lot of investment in yoga right now. And that's partially because of Gabor Mate's work, although he's really got into psychedelics lately, but he was really into yoga for a while. And he's really, really one of the prominent teachers on addiction. So drug and alcohol recovery centers are all having yoga teachers, yoga programs in them. When you can stand out as not just like, oh, I come and teach gentle yoga or I do slow flow or whatever, but you telling them, no, this is like yoga to, and I'm sure Stacy can talk more about it, yoga to help regulate the nervous system, which is exactly what people need who are recovering from drug and alcohol addictions. Yes, that's a wonderful, ripe opportunity if you're interested. Senior centers and senior facilities, very ripe opportunity. Again, same thing. What specifically is the benefit that you're gonna offer these people? Not just, oh, I teach slow, gentle yoga, blah, blah, it's gonna be good. No, I'm gonna help people with their arthritis. I can help people with their cognitive decline. I can help people with mobility. Like, be very specific because you're going to solve the problem. Like, what is the problem that these people have and how does what you do solve it? That's the question. Schools are great. There may not be money there, but if you're already a teacher, it's a great place to teach. And in some cases, there are, especially private schools in the States, there is some opportunity for reimbursement. Therapists are a great way to go. So I use the word therapist here rather than psychotherapist because I also want you to think about physical therapist, occupational therapist, and then you could put people in that category of chiropractors, physicians, other people in the allied health field, nurse practitioners, because when you reach out to these people and collaborate with these people, this is how you can get lots of clients, specifically if you want to work one-on-one or in small groups. I was talking to somebody the other day, I can't remember who it was, I'm sorry, on one of my live streams, and she said, I used your Connect to Healthcare kit, because I have a little kit on my website called Subtle Yoga to Connect to Healthcare, and I have brochures in it. She said, I printed out the brochures, I gave them to this one psychotherapist in town, and now she sends clients to me. Psychotherapists and occupational therapists specifically are really good people to connect with because they have lots of clients coming through who could use some kind of movement therapies to help them mitigate the stress response. And that's exactly what you can do. So therapists are a great place to interface. Therapists are great people to interface with. I also have, over the years, had many, many, many students come through my program say, I want to become a yoga therapist. Young people often, and often I guide them into another profession to start with. I know that sounds weird and counterintuitive, but the thing is, in the United States, if you're a psychotherapist, if you're an occupational therapist, or a nurse practitioner, etc., you can get reimbursed for your work. You can do a ton of yoga within that context, and you can have a very strong, viable business. Not everybody wants to go that route. Of course, I didn't go that route. Not everybody wants to go that route, but it is one route that can be really helpful. So I have so many people in my circle who have become psychotherapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and are doing great and doing tons of yoga within that context and billing for it. Back pain specialists. So back pain is by some estimates, $100 billion industry. It affects 4 out of 5 people at some point in their life. So you have to really drill down to who you want to work with when you're talking about back pain. And then you can work with people who specialize, like whether it's chiropractors, osteopaths, any other kind of, physical therapists, any other kind of profession. Again, you can interface, you can help them make their work better, right? So I never think about myself as competing. I think about myself as and as a complementing and supporting the practitioner's work. You yourself could become a back pain specialist, and that would take a little more work and a little more marketing, but working with back pain specialists is a great way to go too. And then the other big piece here, especially in the US, but also in the UK, certainly in other countries as well, healthcare providers are under an inordinate amount of stress, specifically during COVID. And so providing self-care for healthcare providers is also a ripe opportunity. There are many, many more. I wanted to just kind of point out some of these first, okay? If you're just sort of like, I don't know where to go, think about these and see if any of them make sense to you. Questions to get started. Now we're going to do some breakout groups. So I sent you these questions a couple days ago, I think. And I'm going to leave them up here for a sec. You can write them down if you want or take a screenshot, because we are going to jump out into breakout rooms in a moment here so we can talk about some of these amongst ourselves. The first thing I'd like to do, if you haven't already journaled, jot down a few things about a few notes about each of these questions. What are my skills and interests? So when I say what are my skills here, I mean, are you already a school teacher? Are you a nurse? Are you a physician? Are you a music teacher? I had a guy who was a music teacher, and he went through my training program and then started specializing in helping musicians with their neck pain, you know, like playing the violin or playing the guitar, and their shoulder pain. That was his whole yoga. But it's so great. It's so perfect. You know, he took his skills, which was teaching music, and all of the people he knew in his social network, and then he could reach out to them by giving them some yoga practices. So what are your specific skills? Because you have lots of them. What are your interests? Do you like, are you part of a crafting club? Are you somebody who does paddle boarding? I mean, you could have any of those interests can feed into your yoga business because of your social network. So interests are really important because you know people. Who do I like to teach, and how do I like to teach people in person or online? Because that's going to determine your marketing too. If you want to reach people in person, it's different than reaching people online, and your marketing is going to look different. So who do I like to? That liking to teach thing is really important. You know, I spent some time, and I do like working with folks in recovery. I spent some time working in recovery, and I really loved it, but I really started to feel like my passion was in working with yoga teachers and just helping them to get this information out in a bigger way. So I started developing courses for yoga teachers. I mean, I started doing that 18 years ago, but I drilled down much more into it in the past 4 or 5 years. What's a common problem that these folks have? Common problem for my people is that they don't have enough students. Very common. There's other problems, but that's one of the most common ones. So what's the most common problem for a violinist? You know, they have chronic neck pain from playing the violin. I'm like overemphasizing this, but you can see why that would give you chronic neck pain, right? So what's the common problem they have? That's really important one to realize. People will act when they have a problem that they think you can solve. People will also act when they feel like you give them some kind of inspiration and something to move into for themselves. Those are really big motivators for human beings. So it's really important to drill down and figure out what these problems are for the people that you want to teach. How does what I teach or what I do solve their problem, right? So for my student who worked with the musicians, what he could do was help them with yoga to release the pain in their neck. I mean, it's so specific. And so it's when you're that specific, it's perfect. And I want to tell you one more thing before we break out here. The more specific you are, the better. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. When I first heard that, I was like, what? I'm going to be closing the door on all these potential clients if I just focus on yoga teachers. No. The more specific you are, the better. So I don't just focus on yoga teachers. I focus on yoga teachers who love slow, mindful yoga, who love nervous system, who want to teach nervous system oriented yoga, not necessarily fitness or stretchy yoga. I work with yoga teachers who tend to be in their 50s and older. Like I have a very specific group of people that I work with, maybe had some injuries, definitely understand that that's not the kind of, that they don't want to teach that kind of popular. I mean, I got so specific with who I work with, and that's how I found you, right? So when you are looking to work with people, the drilling down, getting smaller and smaller is actually the way to do it. Then you can always, because then you'll start with a base of people and they'll tell their friends, and then you'll get someone who's not a yoga teacher to work with you, or, you know, or not a musician who wants to work with you too, which is great. But getting really small and solving those specific problems is really important. And not enough yoga teachers understand this or do it. Most of them are just like, here, this is what I learned in my teacher training, so I'm teaching it. And, you know, it may or may not, it's like, you know, trying to hit the target in the dark, because you just have no idea, you know, if you're really solving problem. Okay, so I hope while I was chatting there, you had a little bit of time to think about some of these questions. And what we're going to do now is go into breakout groups. Let me stop this sharing. I'm going to put you in random breakout rooms, which is always fun. And we're going to talk about these questions. So since there are about 30 something people on the call, I'm going to do 10 breakout rooms. So most of them will be 3 and some of them will be 4. Okay. So when we go to the breakout rooms, just so you know, what we're doing is talking about those 4 questions. And I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. So make sure everybody somebody put yourself in charge. You know who you are, put yourself in charge, and you will give everybody about 3 minutes to talk. Okay. So then we'll come back. If you've got 3 people in the room, 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, right? You have 4 people in the room, 3 minutes, 3 people in the room, 4 minutes, and then we'll come back in 12 minutes. Okay. Here we go. I'll see you soon. And if you're not in a room, I'll put you in a room. If your room didn't happen or something, I'll put you in. Looks like everybody's good. Tracy, Inger, you're in room 1. Tracy, you're in room 9. Do you see it? You should just have a little thing you have to click on there. Okay.
People from two ends of the spectrum, and that I'm thinking about going back to doing my baby yoga teaching for mums, which I trained for a few years ago, but haven't really got round to it. And then I have like people with MS and people with cancer. But I was just saying that, you know, if you do people that have got illness the whole time, it can really get you tired and you can get burnout from it. And I need something a little bit lighter. And I think Maggie was saying that she wants to teach children and seniors, you know, so we're thinking about that. And also,
which is great.
Yeah,
that's great to have more. I mean, I really appreciate that point, because as somebody who worked in a nursing home facility, I totally get that you can get burned out. So I really appreciate this point, because I was getting you to drill down so much, which is super important, but it's okay to expand after you drill down, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And to have different spectrums. What we were saying was it was hard. It's been hard in lockdown for seniors that I mainly have in the southeast of England to get online, to get connected on Zoom. I've had all sorts of problems with them, you know, so but we were saying, how do we get people more to come online? Because I was thinking of doing for the autumn yoga nidra and a relaxation evening Zoom class. Awesome. Once I get rid of my kids and they're going off to university, I was thinking I'm going to have the free house to just do an evening class, because I was saying that for 20 years I went out to cold, dark community centres, driving home in the dark, freezing cold, you know, people would get chilly and didn't come, and I'd lose all my students because of the cold weather. So I thought I'd do it at home now. So that's my sort of plan for the autumn anyway.
And maybe you could do like a little video for them of this is how you get set up to do yoga, and you show them all the tech. Like that
Yeah,
could be
that would be
really
great. That
simple.
would be
Yeah,
good. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah,
that's
definitely.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share some of the highlights from, we have a couple more minutes to share highlights from the conversation. Yeah, Brenda.
There we go. Okay, I had a wonderful conversation with Linda and Suzanne, and we're all older. And Suzanne talked about how she wants to work with people with osteoporosis, and not just those people, but kind of reach out a little bit. But she specifies with that. And Linda talked about working with people with trauma, and Linda has therapy. Yeah, physical therapy, was it? Psychotherapy.
Yeah, she's a psychotherapist. Yeah.
Psychotherapy. And, and so we just kind of compared, what we're doing. I, on the other hand, had a studio pre-COVID. I now teach online, and I'm hearing a lot about people having difficulty with Zoom. What I do is I get on the phone with my ladies and I say, okay, let me walk you through it. And I have a very easy software program that all they have to do is sign up. Up comes broadcast, they click on that and they're on.
That's
and
awesome.
Of course, just need the camera. But so yeah, Zoom is the cutoff point for a lot of people. Now I'll be teaching. I found a studio that will allow me to teach starting August, and my people there are on Zoom right now are like, well, what am I going to do when the weather is bad, like Donna mentioned, and things like that. I said, I'm going to keep streaming. I'll just keep streaming until streaming is no longer or whatever. But
right.
Yeah, I'll do both.
Right. That's great. And that brings me to a comment that somebody put in the chat box about teaching at studios, which I thought was really insightful and a good question. She said, how do you be, this is from Mary, how to be specific when you work for a studio who wants to fill classes? Or does this apply only to individual pursuits? Absolutely not. It definitely applies to studios, but you have to convince the studio people of what you do and who you do it for and why it's valuable. This is something that I've struggled with many, many times for many years, is how do I help the studio people understand, the studio owners, studio managers understand what I do, how it's valuable. And then once they got it, they would be like, oh, you're the one I can send those people who come in and I don't have anywhere to send them to. Perfect. So but there were certainly plenty of studios along the way who just had no interest in what I was doing whatsoever. So it is a matter of communicating, like, this is what I do. This is why you should send people to me. This is how I'm going to help your studio be more inclusive of more different kinds of, there's so many things you can say to studio owners. So it certainly applies to working in studios. And if they want to fill their classes and they're not thinking about that 90% of the population who are not elite athletes and who don't do yoga, then they're missing a huge market share. And you got to convince them of that too. I saw a hand somewhere. Oh, Brenda, yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to add on to that because the studio that I'm teaching at, they do yoga fusion, yoga, power yoga, core yoga, all of that. And I told her what I do and I showed her and she said, this is just what we need. And she's already sent one client to me to show them how to get online and to invite them to the class. So
yeah, that's wonderful. And there's no, like, you can't convince somebody who doesn't want to be convinced. Like, if they're just like, no, we teach the power to the CrossFit, whatever, like that's what we do, then it's not a good fit. It's okay to be like, okay, I'm not yoga for everybody. And that's what I mean when I say yoga for everybody is no yoga for nobody, because like, I know that what I do is not for everybody. If those people don't want what I do, and frankly, it's not satisfying to me to teach people who are going to those kind of classes because they're getting something different and that's what they expect and want. And I can't give that to them and I don't want to give it to them. So, so to let go of this idea, like I have to make everybody happy, that was another mindset shift for me, just being like, okay. And I think that, when you find those studios that do understand what you're trying to do, they can be huge advocates for this work, huge, and really big supporters of this kind of work. So let's do one more share. Anybody from the group, some things that came out that were either insightful, inspiring, helped you to understand something. Anybody else? If there's no more shares, it's okay. But if there are, happy to listen.
I just wanted to say one thing I appreciated Brenda sharing was she teaches people how to get up and down off the floor.
Huge. Yep.
Huge. Yeah. I just wanted to add that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Anybody else before we go on? Okay. So thank you. I hope that exercise of just getting those 4 questions and journaling about them is helpful for you. I spent a lot of time, and I still do, thinking about, writing about, journaling about all of these questions and those 6 ripe opportunity areas as well. Thinking about, writing about, journaling about, like talking to people about, like, are these my area? I don't know, and kind of working it through in my mind. And I work mostly with yoga teachers now, but before that, I was really much more focused on working with people with trauma, people with addiction problems, people with mental health challenges, because that's what I was interested in. Okay. So let's keep going here. I have a few more things I want to share with you. Let me make sure I have the right video. Here we go. I have a few more slides I would like to share with you, just some nuts and bolts stuff. And then if we have time, we will also make sure I'm recording. Okay. If we have time, we'll also do another breakout room. We'll see. We might not have time. We might just do chats. We'll see. Okay, so the next thing I want to, I had to put a little red hot chili pepper meme in there, but the next thing I want to talk about is giving it away, giving yoga away. So what does that mean? So this is a good thing and a problematic thing if you don't understand it completely, right? So many times I get complaints from people, from yoga teachers, saying how, especially during COVID, how am I going to survive when Adrienne is teaching yoga for free and everybody's just leaving my classes and watching free yoga on Zoom or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, or YouTube or whatever. So the people are giving it away, and it is a really good business model if you have a plan. If you don't have a plan behind it, it's a terrible business model. So Adrienne has a very savvy marketing plan behind her giving things away, and she's making money. There is no doubt that she makes a living teaching yoga, even though she has free YouTube videos, because if all you're seeing is the free YouTube videos, you're not seeing what's below the surface and all the other stuff that she's doing with it. So when I give stuff away, and I give stuff away all the time, I always have a plan behind it. The giving it away part is really important because it helps people to get to know you and know that what you do is specific. So like, let's just take, for example, Suzanne, who wants to work yoga for osteoporosis, right? So she can give away all sorts of things. She could make a stick figure cheat sheet of safe poses for osteoporosis, for example. That could be one thing. Like, here's 5 poses you can do when you have osteoporosis that will give you the benefits of yoga without the risk of fractures, right? Because that's what people want to know. How do I move? Now they're not going to find that, or they might find that on YouTube with Yoga for Adrienne, but they're going to have to dig for it, because that's not who she's not thinking about people with yoga for us with osteoporosis. She's just thinking about, like, throw the net out. She's a different business model than what I'm talking about, right? So I'm saying, like, stick figures. Okay, that could be one thing. That would be something, a freebie to give away. It's kind of easy to do. And you could do that. You could give it to people who come to your classes. You could give a talk at a senior group and say, I teach for yoga for osteoporosis. That's why it's really good. I'll do a little demonstration, and here's a freebie. If you wanted to if you're doing more digital stuff, you could have a Facebook page, and on your page you give away stick figures, or do a Facebook ad, give away stick figures. So there's so many ways that you can give stuff away. And what it does is help people to know you. So also you could give away ebooks, you give away videos, you give away classes, so many things that you can give away. But don't give anything away unless you have a plan behind it. If you're going to sell something, you do presentations and lectures, I give away that stuff all the time. So if you're going to sell something, if you're going to give something away, also have something to sell, because that's where people are trusting you, and some people might want to buy something at the same time. Like, look at this great teacher, Suzanne. She teaches yoga for osteoporosis, and I love her free stick figures. And then she said I could take this class with her for 6 weeks on how, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to sign up for whatever, $150 or whatever it is. So she's given something away and built trust. And also it feels really good to give things away. Like, it's just like, it's so natural and human and yogic to give stuff away. So there's a wonderful part of it. And so, I have 30,000 people on my email list. I frequently, when I send out my blogs are giving things away. I give away my opinion. I give away my expertise. And then in my blog, I often will put, hey, like yesterday, I sent out my blog and I put, hey, and by the way, I've got this workshop coming up October 2nd and 3rd, and you should save the date, and I'll tell you about it later. That's true. I'd love you to come to my workshop and I'll tell you about it later. But that's the sort of thing that I'm constantly thinking about. Like, what can I give away so that people come into my sphere and know what I do and trust me and realize I have certain expertise in a certain thing, and then I can help them. That's basically the way that I think about giving stuff away. Oh, and then the last thing is stuff, to give away stuff. Because when you give away it, not always, sometimes I give away stuff, sometimes I don't. Like, I give away 3-minute eggs a lot because I think they're fun. And it's nice for my friend Jason, who makes them. Then he sells a lot of eggs every time I give them away. So sometimes stuff, but more often I give away my knowledge base, just because that's what we are as yoga teachers. But the next piece is that you have to have a plan. With, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So you can't just give away stick figures without any plan behind it, or whatever you're giving away. There should always be a plan behind it, and that can help your goal. And this is from Seth again. He keeps making little cameos in my presentation here. Marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories you tell. So the next thing I want to talk about is leveraging your story. You have a story, whether it's I had osteoporosis, or I had a stroke, or I had an addiction, whatever it is. This is the most powerful asset you have. You often will hear people say your power is in your pain. And what that means is the thing that you have struggled through, the thing that you have overcome, often is where you find the will and the grace and the inspiration to help and share with other people and to help other people. So leverage your story. What did you overcome, and how can you help others overcome it more quickly and easily than you did? This is a huge piece of marketing, and you see it all the time. You see it in a really gross way on the internet all the time, like on Facebook ads all the time. Somebody who's just like, I lost 50 pounds and you can too if you do what I did. That's the basics of it. But the reality, or the underlying mechanism there, is what they've understood and what they're leveraging and how they're making money is, I had some problem and I fixed it, and you can too. Now, the good news here, and the really important message to take away from this little piece of the presentation, is you are not selling snake oil. You're not selling some magic elixir to lose weight. You're not selling, some pill to fix your whatever problem. You're not doing that. What you're doing is offering people the most transformative system, the most transformative tools on the planet. And you have no doubt about that. I have no doubt about that. You have no doubt about that, because you've seen it in yourself and you've seen it in your students. And so that's what makes me keep going and not feel unethical about marketing, because I'm not selling snake oil. I'm selling something really powerful and really useful, and that's something that can change people's lives. And yoga really does work in a way that, a lot of the junk out there that's being sold does not work. So this is the piece of it that where you can really rest and you can really sleep easily at night, knowing that what you're doing is helpful for folks. Avoid too much information. So what I mean TMI, too much information, what I mean there is, you've been to the yoga classes where the yoga teacher just broke up with her boyfriend and spills it all out to the class before. You probably have seen that or been to that. Too much information. So we want to tell our story, but we want to tell it in a way, and the way that it's been helpful for me is like, I want to tell my story, but in a way that I'm always thinking about how I can help people by telling my story, not telling my story just for the emotional fix that I get from telling my story. And then the connected community piece is super important in your story, but also because now you're working with other folks who have osteoporosis or addiction challenges or whatever, and they're all telling their story to each other, and they're feeling that connectedness. And the connected communities are what human beings are really hardwired for. We want to create more connection, and it's particularly in this time of COVID, where people feel very disconnected. It's very important. A couple of tips on getting professional. It is important to join some organizations. You can choose what those are. It might not be Yoga Alliance or International Association of Yoga Therapists, but organizations can be really helpful just for social networking, for connection. Liability insurance, especially in the United States, is very important. We live in a litigious culture. Investing in professional photos is a good idea. The first professional photos I had done were not, I think I spent like $100. They were not very expensive. So there's plenty of ways to do this in a way that's not going to break the budget, but I don't break the bank, but I don't recommend just having a phone shot for your headshot and for shots on your website. Get your website to look good and clean, but don't over focus on your website. It's not all about your website. Having a small, the way that it was described to me once, websites are like stores. So if you send somebody to a store and you don't show them around the store, they're going to come in and leave, right? So the website should be, and you see on my website, when you come to my website, it tells you exactly, the first thing that you see on my website is this box is for yoga teachers, this box is for mental health people, this box is for yoga enthusiasts. So click on the box that you are, and I will show you around my store. So think about your website like that. It's not just descriptive. It has to engage people and take them someplace, but make it simple, make it clean. It's not the only part of your marketing at all. Not anymore. It was 20 years ago, but not anymore. Be really clear and specific about what you offer. That's important in your website too. And just in general, not everybody has a website. If you're just using your Facebook page instead of a website, same thing. Have it really clear and specific and let people know exactly where to go and what you're going to help them with. So technology is an issue. How comfortable do you feel with it is always an issue. And if you're not comfortable with it, that tells you something. Either you get some help or you get more comfortable with it, because technology is just the reality. Do you send out regular newsletters and mailing lists? A key here is to be consistent. If you're sending out a newsletter, try to send it out every week at the same time. I try to be consistent. Sometimes I'm not, but I do my best, right? And same thing with mailing lists. And what do you want to be on? Do you want to be on Pinterest? Do you like Pinterest? Be on Pinterest. If you like Facebook, be on Facebook. You don't have to do all of it. Some people like Instagram, whatever works. And then I also want to talk to you about the virtues of virtual assistants. I have a woman who works for me. She's 23 or 24, and she's amazing on Instagram. She knows exactly what she's doing. And I'm so happy that she took that thing off of my hands, and she's helping me with that. And she does a lot of other stuff too. Virtual assistants, you can find them all over the internet. Some are more expensive, some are more affordable, some are better, some are worse. Like, you have to find people that work really well with what you need. But the big question is, who can help me with what? And we'll talk about that in a minute. Like, what kind of help do you need? Networking is really important, being an ally and a partner. I was talking about this a little bit in my blog yesterday, especially with women. As you can see, looking around here, I think we're all women. There might be a bloke that I'm not seeing, but I think we need to support each other in the work that we're doing, not feel so competitive with each other. So people approach me frequently, and I approach other people who are doing similar work that I'm doing, and we kind of chat about things and figure out how we can help each other. And I think that's collaboration rather than competition is a really important way of thinking. And all that being said, be very selective and careful about who you approach, because some people have different ideas, right? And some people have different ways of thinking about these things. So you do have to be careful with who you approach. And I have had plenty of my work ripped off over the years, many times by many people who had different values than I had. Celebrating other teachers' successes is really helpful. It just makes you feel better too, like somebody's doing something good, awesome. When I shifted my mindset from like, why are they so successful and I'm not, into like, okay, they're doing something great and I can do something great too. It's going to be something different, because everybody on this planet, all 7 billion people, need a yoga teacher, in my humble opinion. And I'm not the best yoga teacher for everybody, thank God, because it would be way too much pressure on me personally. I know what I can take and what I can't take. So celebrate the successes. Send people to other teachers when that's an amazing thing to do. When I know that I can't work with somebody for whatever reason, I have too much going on, and I send them to somebody else, the person I send them to is so grateful to me. So I think it's really important to have people like that in your sphere, in your realm. Okay, so this is the last slide. So we're going to spend a little time talking about this action plan, taking action, define the areas of potential. And you can go ahead and start writing some things down if you want right now. What are those potential areas for you that you want to work in? And we already talked about this a little bit. So if you're clear about it, great. And then the action plan is, okay, how am I going to find them? What are you going to do to find these people? Have you thought about it? How are you going to find these people? Are you going to put a flyer up at the grocery store? Are you going to go to a nursing home with a brochure and tell them what you can do? Are you going to make a call to a specific therapist's office? Have a specific action plan for finding your people. What are you going to do? What are you going to leave this workshop with? Okay. And then the last question is, who can help you? Which I don't think I ever stop asking this question. This question is always on my mind. Who is going to help me? And I don't necessarily know who's going to help me, but I know that Google is my friend and will help me find them. And I also know, I've also learned that you have to do your due diligence with everyone. You have to read reviews. You have to talk to their previous clients. You have to know that you're working with somebody you can really trust. And it's okay to pay a little bit more to work with somebody who's really good. So this is the last thing I want us to leave with. And I think we have time. I'm going to stop here. Are these 3 things? I think we have time to break out now and talk about these things for about 10 minutes again, unless there's a big question before. Let's see. Alignable is great. Local business networking platform. Thank you, Angela. That's great. Brenda talked about offering my free videos to people interested, which are only available through me. I'm not on YouTube. Videos are on my website only. Good. Fleda likes my 90s references. Thank you. Okay. So let's break out into groups. I think we could do this for about 12 minutes again, and then we'll have 5 minutes to wrap up when we get back. So the idea here is I want you to write your action plan. Like, who are you going to call on Monday? Who are you going to try and find to help? What are you going to do? What kind of research are you going to do to find that person to help you? How are you going to find your people? Okay. Let's see. Fleda said my breakout group, my mic didn't work last time. I logged out, but back in. So, okay. So I'm going to stay right here. If you get into your breakout room and there's nobody there, or they can't hear you or whatever, come back and we'll try and figure out how how to get you in. You're going to be in the same room that you were in before. So, and there a few people have left already. So some of these will be a little bit smaller. Okay, here we go. About 12 minutes.
Hi, I got put into a breakout room and then I got chucked out.
Oh, really? Okay, let me see.
I was in room 2.
Karen. Oh, here you go. Let me see. I'm moving you to room 1 so I can move you back to room 2.
Okay.
Okay, see if that worked. Did that work?
Thank you. I don't know. If you don't see me again, it's worked.
Okay. Okay, and Fleda, you're not getting in a room, huh? Let me see where you are. Oh no, and hang on a second. Let me move her there. Let me see if I can find you, Fleda, on here. There you are. Oh, you're unassigned. I guess you went off for a minute. Okay, what room were you in before? Do you remember the number, or do you remember who you were with? Oh, you were in 9? Okay, I'm putting you back there. That should work. And what about Marie?
I was in 8 and I just lost power for a moment and
Okay.
okay,
It should
thank
get
you.
you in
Thank you.
there.
Thank
Okay,
you.
sure.
Yes.
And there's one more person on here. I'm putting you into, let's see, put you into, oh, it says you're unassigned. Putting you into room 2. And Tracy. Tracy, if you're here, you're just in room 9. But if for whatever reason you're not here, that's fine too, of course. recording here. Okay. So we just have a few minutes left. Oh, here we go. It's just the rooms hadn't ended. I thought everybody just left. Okay, so here we go. So thank you, everybody. I hope talking about some of these ideas were helpful for you. I thought we could finish up by having, if anybody has any Q&A, any questions that you would like to just put out there or anything inspiring. Yeah, Deborah, go ahead.
This was just an idea that popped up in the breakout session. Because so many people are working remotely now, that it might be an opportunity to reach out to corporations in which all of their people are working or most of it remotely to offer your services. Because, you know, I watch my son who's been working remotely for a year now, and he lives by himself in Manhattan, which has been closed down. And I'm thinking, you need to get out. You need to be in an office. You need to talk to people other than through the screen. So, so maybe offering movement, mindfulness, you know, nervous system resilience would be perfect.
Yeah, put that on the ripe opportunities list. That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share? I mean, I'm happy to questions or inspiring ideas. Either anyway, it's fine. Hive mind stuff is great. Yeah, Brenda, go ahead.
Okay, I sent Suzanne a message there to unmute herself and tell us what you do, what you told us about having professionals come on after your video classes.
Yeah, I want to get more people on Zoom during the pandemic because I lost a lot of people. But anyway, I called a couple of physical therapists and had them do a 20-minute presentation after one of the yoga classes. And so we could collaborate together. I could send some people and she can send people to me. And I also had a foot doctor and things like that. And other things like the co-op, I had Gretchen come on and talk to the students about just different things to keep the interest of the Zoom.
Yeah. That's a wonderful idea, Suzanne. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, and it's about that collaboration that I was talking about earlier. It's excellent. So thank you for sharing that. It's a really good idea. So easy to do too right now when you're doing things virtually. It's just like, can you come on for it? And, they don't have to even get out of their pajamas necessarily. Just turn on the camera and talk for 10 minutes, That's great. Thank you. Anybody else want to share or have a question? Let's see. Kristen wrote, I realized a major roadblock for me is that I'm not a yoga therapist, just a 200-hour teacher. So to put myself out there to help with anxiety feels like I'm not really qualified, even though I know my practices help that condition in a major way. Okay, let's talk about this because it's a good point, Kristen. So I'm not a yoga therapist, just a 200-hour teacher. Okay, you got to stop saying that. Saying I'm a yoga professional because you are, that's just fine. There's a difference between therapy and wellness, prevention, health promotion, right? There's a difference between therapy and wellness. So let's say you want to work with people with anxiety. You're not saying I'm going to solve your anxiety problem. You're saying, so you can say something like, when you're not with your therapist, when you need some self-care stuff, I can teach you things that can help you with whatever else you're doing. I mean, I'm a yoga therapist and I talk like that all the time. I never say I'm going to solve your anxiety problem. I say, let me show you some things that may be helpful for you. I don't know, they might not be, but they may help you support the other therapies that you're doing. So, and even yoga therapists should be talking like that because really, I mean, I think everybody should talk like that, frankly, because really we are not licensed in the United States or anywhere in the world that I know of. I mean, maybe I think Sweden is the country, or was it Switzerland? I can't remember. Iris might know. There's one country in Europe where they have this like crazy hard standards for yoga therapists. But for the majority of us, what we're doing is supporting people in wellness. We're not therapists. So when we can be really clear about that I have something to support your osteoporosis. Suzanne's not going to solve anybody's osteoporosis problems, right? She's just supporting whatever therapies that they're doing. She's giving them a sense of agency, a sense that they can do something. This is why, like, being an educator is or a coach, those kinds of words are helpful, you know. So please break out of like this just a 200-hour teacher. You have something very important to offer and very helpful to offer. And you're here and you keep your studies going. The thing that bothers me are the people that finish 200 hours and then go, I'm done, and they hang up their shingle and they open a yoga teacher training program. That's really irritating, and that happens a lot, right? So that's what bothers me. It's not the kind of people that are committed to keep furthering their studies, you know, which is you, Kristen. So I hope that's helpful to think about it that way. Okay, anybody else? Questions, comments, or anything else you want to share?
Can I just add to that?
Sure.
Yeah, I think the other piece is that we can say that we can help with people's stress.
Yes.
Regulating the nervous system. And when we work with the stress levels, we are affecting those conditions, but we're not saying we're curing them, but we're certainly not ramping them up even more.
Right.
We're helping the system to come back to balance. So
yeah. Exactly. There's so many ways to talk about this that I think are really supportive, and you know, we're supporting people, we're giving people agency, we're helping the nervous system, we're helping with stress. Any of those things, there's nothing wrong with talking about those things at all, and there's nothing wrong with talking about specific conditions as long as we're being very clear that we're supporting the stress of somebody with cancer, right? Not curing their cancer. So thank you, Sally. That's a great point. Anybody else want to share? Let's see. Lori said, I felt the same way until I started taking all of Kristine's classes. Thank you. And trainings in the Resilient Society have gotten a huge confidence boost in what I can offer and how I articulate it. Yes. And thank you, Tracy. We are the light. That's beautiful. And that's, I think that's a really big part of what we do, is getting really, really specific and clear about language. And again, this is the core of marketing. This is what marketing is all about, is being really effective communicators. So that's what we all have so much opportunity to work on. Yoga is an amazing field to be in. We'll never know it all. We always have more to learn. You know, I've been reading a bunch of scholarly articles about Kundalini lately because I'm working on a course about the subtle body and the chakra system. And I'm like, man, I don't know anything. And it's so great because there's so much to learn. This is wonderful. Okay, let's see. Marie wrote, question opinion on formal certification in other, i.e. yin, restorative, or self-study books, etc. appropriate, thinking limited budget, and how to continue to learn. Yeah. You know, it depends on who you are and what kind of learner you are, right, Marie? Like, I love reading books and synthesizing information from lots of different places. And I'm very, very proactive in increasing my training. But there's this thing that happens, and it's especially happens to women. So you want to catch yourself in it, which we go, I'm not good enough. I need to do that training. I need to do another training. I need to do another training. I need to, right? And then we have professional students, right? So we have to be careful to check that in ourselves, because guess what you know right now is super valuable, and it's more than most people. Frankly, you are learning stuff about the nervous system that most people in the yoga world never even talk about or know about. They are mostly learning about hamstrings and muscles, you know. So you've got something to help people regulate their nervous system, and you kind of get it and you're able to start talking about it. That's huge. So we have to find that balance between, like, yeah, continue your professional studies, read books and all that stuff. That's great. And watch videos. There's tons of great stuff to watch everywhere, you know, but don't overdo it. Like, be okay and practice. Like, go back to that mindset thing I was talking about, because it's the practice that really helps you to be the vehicle for that light, as opposed to just, you know, feeling like you don't have enough knowledge base. So So thank you for sharing that, because you got to find that balance. Iris said, good point to take the chance to learn something new rather than feeling inadequate. Exactly. I should have said even more learning with you, and perhaps charging for classes to subsidize continued learning. Of course, charge for classes. I did a teacher training program back, it was like 2013 or 2012, and I had a really good group, and I had some extra income, and I invested the whole thing in studying. So, I mean, you do, well, not the whole thing, but a chunk of it, So I think that I think it's really important to keep subsidizing your learning. Brenda said, I find that people are more interested in the fact that I keep learning than what my titles are. Yes, I agree. I've followed Kristine. She's given me the confidence to slow down the practice. I love knowing about the nervous system and the brain. Thank you. Cool. That's great, Brenda. I'm glad that's been helpful for you. Okay, so I want to make sure we don't go way over time here, because it is it's 7 minutes after the hour where I am in the world. So I want to make sure I honor the rest of your day. So thank you everybody for being here. And I do hope that you leave with a feeling like, I hope that action plan activity gave you something to do on Monday. If you're going to do something on Monday to move your teaching forward. And let's keep talking in the group about this stuff, because it's at the core of what we do. We are selling something, we are serving something and selling something that is incredibly transformative, and that so many people need. So what's very important is us figuring out the right way to get it, so people can understand who we are and what we do. So I hope that you've got something like that out of the workshop today. I want to thank you for spending these 2 hours with me, and thank you so much for being members of the Resilience Society. I'll see you on Tuesday. We've got a pranayama class coming up. And yeah, and just to remember that we are changing to Wednesday mornings coming in August. I think everybody knew that, but just so you know, because I put out a survey, because I never make decisions without asking you, and there was an overwhelming response to going back to Wednesday morning. So I'll keep doing a few things on Tuesday nights here and there for the people that can't make it live on Wednesday mornings, for sure. Because I like to do extra workshops and things now and then, but the regular class will be on Wednesdays. If you can't be there on Wednesday mornings at 9:30, find a study buddy in the group so you guys can watch the replay together and talk about it, okay? All right, thank you everybody. It's so nice to see you, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Kristine.
Thank you.
Thank you.